What's up, y'all? This is 10x Generation, and this is my road to $1 billion. I'm building a decentralized cloud gaming platform so you can earn passive income sharing your PC and your games with others through the internet. I got some good work done, but before I get into the progress that I made, I want to talk about something interesting that I thought of and learned about today, and that's overstimulation. If you guys have been watching along, you will know that I've been having problems getting motivation to continue on this project. And every single day I'm looking for new things or problems that I see myself having and trying to fix them so that I can get back to how I used to be. And intense focus, like 12-hour work days, and I'll be having fun and I'll get so much done. Where now it takes so much effort for me to get forward. And I want it to become fun, and I want it to be that constant drive forward. So today I learned about something called overstimulation. And that's basically where in your environment there is so much going on, so many things that like slowly that absorb some of your attention, that it becomes very hard to focus on things. And I was reading about this and I looked at my desk, and you can look at my previous videos. You look at my desk, it's filled with knickknacks and decoration. Why do I have so much decoration? Well, there's two reasons. I want to make it so that when I record these videos, you have something cool to look at. That's one. And the second thing is I had this other previous philosophy that I think you should surround your workspace with reminders of what you want and your goals in life, right? So I had a globe because I wanted to travel the world. I had a plant because I wanted to get out in nature. I just filled it up with stuff that would serve as reminders to the things that I want to get out of life. But the issue is that when you're constantly surrounded by reminders, they just become distractions. And early today, yesterday, and the day before, I was in this state called apathy. I think that's what it is. And it feels kind of like boredom, where you're just like sitting around and don't really have anything to do. But the difference is that apathy, you have no motivation to actually do anything. You're actually fine just sitting there doing nothing. You're just fine. And I felt that for, quite a while. I have, if I look around my room, I have so many things to do. I could play piano, I could play guitar. I have tons of books. I have electronics because I used to do a lot of electronics, so circuitry. I have a 3D printer. I have, the Vision Pro. I have computers out the wazoo. I have, just stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff on top of stuff, and reminders and awards and all this stuff around me. And honestly, the way I had my room set up is that you could literally just stand in the middle and look around and you will be entertained. And I think that's where I was at. So when I try to sit down and program for long periods of time, I honestly get distracted. So as you can see, my workspace is clear. There's nothing on it. If you look to the right, if I sit here and then look to the right, I see nothing but my exercise equipment. That's to remind me to exercise. And then if I look to that's my left. If I look to the right, it's the door. My desk is clear, up is clear, it's all clear. And that keeps me focused and avoids overstimulation. Turns out this is very well studied, right? Overstimulation and its effect on productivity. And that's why many office buildings are designed to be boring, designed to be, what's it called? Like simplified and very, forgetting the word, minimalistic, very minimalistic, not very flashy, not super interesting looking, just basic. And I always like despised that basic, like simplified look to a workspace. It's like you work here all day, you want to get work done, you want to have an environment that inspires. Why in the world would you make it as boring as possible? But I now realize the reason is it's done purposefully. The reason is to make it so that you can focus on whatever is at hand. There's not constantly all these interesting designs and these things around you that's keeping you from focusing. So it's pretty interesting. The thing I'm kind of running away from, uh, this minimalistic, real basic, like just setup is what I need to do. So you can see my desk is like that, and I have my immediate look area, like my immediate area where I can look, completely simplified and basic. And the rest of my room is the same way. A lot of those little reminders of things are kind of toned down or put in the corner or put away from my attention so that they're not like yelling at my attention, yelling for my attention. Um, Another thing is that I made it so that the most significant thing in my room is now this desk. It's this blank wall, desk, computer, and that's it. It stands out. So when I wake up, not only is it on my mind, okay, I gotta get to work, but the room that I'm in literally yells to me, hey, look at me, get my, I want your attention. That's what this design does. So, yeah, that's super interesting. That's super interesting. We'll see how that affects me, but I do like the way my room looks. It feels calmer. It feels less scatterbrained. So maybe that will be reflected in my videos, because I personally think that your room is almost a perfect mirror of what your mind is like. Almost a perfect mirror, you know, especially if you spend so much time, a bunch of time in your room. I think it's a really good mirror of what your mind is. But it also goes both ways. As you change your mind, your room begins to change. But if you're having a hard time changing your mind, you could just change your room, and that will slowly influence your mind. So I think that's pretty interesting. And that's why I used to put all these symbols, right? I would have the big check. I would have some of my awards, my music awards. I would have my science fair awards. I would have, just things I'm proud of. And, those were really just reminders of me to stay confident. But the issue is that I've always been a confident person. I've never had issues with confidence. So constantly reminding myself to be confident when I'm already confident is like a moot point. There's no point to doing that. But focus, right? Nothing but work. That's what I want my room, or part of my room, to be. Of course, I don't want to be a workaholic and every other part of my life to disintegrate. So the rest of my room still has elements that I, bits and pieces, but this is the most significant. You know, and if I look back at my how I used to be when I used to be really focused, when I would literally I remember this so clearly. I would wake up for months. Wake up. The first thing I do in the morning is program. All day. Last thing I did at night was program. Pretty much every moment of the day I was programming. And if I were to look at my room back then, I had my computer and my connector to my phone, because I was programming an app at that time. That's it. That was my room, because I wasn't thinking about everything else. I wasn't thinking about anything else. That was it. So I'm trying to get back to that. It's really interesting. Most of my thoughts now are getting back to how my mindset used to be. But I really do hope I'm making progress. Anyway, so that's the mental stuff that I did today. You can probably tell last thing I wanted to say is I was feeling like, is it a little crazy or a little like, is it is it healthy for me to be analyzing myself so much, like rearranging my room and thinking about, oh, I can't do this because of this, and this particular thing messed me up here. Is that like healthy? Is that like normal? I don't think it's that normal, but is it healthy? And then I came to the realization is that, like, I'm in a body, right, that has no instruction manual, right? I don't know how this thing works. I don't know what makes it, what conditions make it so that it's performing at its most optimal. I don't know. Yet I'm expected to do my best. So me putting so much mental effort into figuring out, okay, this is the scenario, this is the situation, this is the environment that makes it so that I can work at my most efficient. This is the mindset that I need to take. This is what I need to eat. This is how I need to really learning about who I am and how I work. Even though now it seems a little like scatterbrained, a little wild, eventually, if I actually learn, eventually I will get to a point where I know myself so well that, like, when I move into a new house, I know exactly where to put my stuff. I know exactly what kinds of foods I need to eat. I know exactly what times I need to work out, what I need to say to myself, how I need to basically construct my life so that I can be successful in any environment, because I manipulate the environment to make it, suit whatever I'm trying to do. And I think people who don't spend so much time analyzing themselves, understanding how they tick, and how to be emotionally conscious of how they are, I think if you don't understand that part of yourself, you're really running on low power mode. You're running on low power mode. I like to think about like quantum computers. Like, they're these fancy computers that uses some really weird, like really crazy weird, like principles of physics where things work a little differently, right? But in order for it to act, this quantum computer to work, they have to manipulate its environment so drastically. They have to make it so that it's near absolute zero, in terms of temperature, and minimize vibrations, and do all this crazy stuff like shield it from the cosmic rays, and do all this wild stuff just to get this computer to work. But once it's in that perfect environment, it does what it needs to do. And I think humans are kind of the same way, right? You can work, except for you can work pretty okay in most environments. We adapt, but if you want to work optimally, get those flow states consistently, tons of creativity and learning fast, you have to understand how you work and what you need. So yeah, that's really what that's my mental process for today. Secondly, for my business, what I actually got done today. So I said yesterday that I got some timer things working. Well, so when you make a notification, let's say you host your computer, the computer needs to be hosted for a period of time, and I need the server to keep track of that in way of a timer. The issue is that because I was using Flask, there is no main thread, and there's no main loop. There's nothing actually continuously running. Well, there is, but like it's a little different than a traditional like Python script, because it's all like asynchronous. Because what happens is that you call the server through its routes, and then it executes the functions, but there's not something continuously, like there's not a loop running continuously. It's really just waiting for it to be called, if that makes sense. So something like a timer doesn't really work in Flask. So I had to change it up and use something else. I forgot what it was called. I did forget what it was called. It's like, it starts with a G though. It starts with a G. They always have these weird names for these things, but G, and I'm just gonna call it G. And by exchanging Flask with this G thing, it allows me to run these it gives it a main thread so that it can run these timers and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for what I actually got done today. Again, not very much done, but yeah, not very much done, but you know, every day I'm trying, and every day I do something. I think that's the key. Every day I do something, and every day I'm trying to do better. Every day. And like, just I'm not like, just for my own personal benefit, to make it so that I don't feel like a kind of like a failure. Even though every single day I'm like, oh, I barely got this done. I got this little bit done, but it was kind of broken. I fixed it the next day. Even though I'm like that every single day, I have to realize that like a month ago, I didn't know JavaScript. I didn't know JavaScript. I didn't know next.js. I didn't even know how to make a button in like, well, I knew how to make a button in HTML, but I didn't know how to set it up with tailwind and do this other stuff. I didn't know the beginning of how to make a web app. And now I could, like, literally, if you were to ask me, I could probably make a really basic web app in 30 minutes. 30 minutes, real basic. So I have to remember, in addition to making progress to my goal, I also have to learn it because I don't know it. I have to learn it and implement it. I have to do both. So I really can't be super hard on myself, like, oh, I did nothing today. It's like every day I'm learning a little bit more about the app and about myself. And what I've seen throughout these past videos is that I'll have periods of just learning about myself and learning about whatever I'm doing, and then a period of just intense focus, and I'll get a whole bunch done. And then I'll move on to something that I know nothing about, and then it slows down again. So, yeah. And I'm saying all this because I feel, you know, sometimes throughout the day I feel like, oh, I'm not making any freaking progress. But the truth is I am. And the truth is that this stuff is kind of difficult. Especially because I'm trying to teach myself all of it. So I gotta cut myself some slack sometimes. But anyway, that's really it. This is 10x Generation, and this is my road to $1 billion. I make these videos every single day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.